Have you ever noticed that the moment someone starts loving you deeply, they stop showing it loudly? Isn't it strange that the quietest gestures often reveal the loudest devotion? And yet, most people are too distracted, too wounded, too unsure of their worth to recognize when they are already loved. Here's the paradox. A man may never say "I love you" with his words, but his soul whispers it through his choices. And if you don't know how to listen, you might walk away from someone whose heart was already bowing toward yours. Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you will not only recognize the truth of a man's intentions, you will realize that you are a queen, and it's time you start acting like one. When a man's energy quiets around you, there is a moment, subtle, almost unnoticeable, when a man's entire energy softens around a woman he feels drawn to. It doesn't happen with noise or fireworks or any grand gesture. It happens in the spaces between his breaths, in the pauses between his sentences, in the way his shoulders relax the moment you enter the room. He may not even understand it himself, but something inside him shifts, an instinct, a recognition, a quiet returning. As if some long-lost part of him remembers something ancient, something familiar, something safe. The loud, confident, playful exterior he shows the world begins to quiet, not because he loses interest, but because something deeper than interest has been awakened. Attraction makes noise, connection makes silence. And when a man feels that deeper connection, he does not lean in with charm, he leans in with stillness. His presence becomes deliberate, his tone becomes gentle, even his humor softens, as if he is choosing his words with more care, more intentionality, more meaning. He doesn't yet know what you represent to his life, but he knows enough to tread carefully, not out of fear, but out of reverence. You become a kind of sacred territory he doesn't want to disrupt with the usual noise of his ego. He wants to make the right impression, but not in a performative way. It is more instinctual than planned, more spiritual than strategic. He simply feels the need to be better, calmer, more aware, and you may notice it too. That subtle shift in the air. When he looks at you, the room feels like it exhales. When he speaks to you, something about his voice feels grounded. When he stands beside you, you sense a respect that doesn't need announcing. It's intangible but unmistakable. This quieting is not the absence of interest, it is the presence of sincerity. Many women mistake this softness for hesitation, for uncertainty, for emotional distance. But it is, in truth, the opposite. A man who wants you loudly often wants to impress, conquer, or win. A man who wants you quietly is taking you seriously. He is evaluating his words, reflecting on his intentions, measuring his emotions, calibrating his energy. He quiets because for the first time in a long time, something matters. And in that quietness is the first sign, the first whisper of the heart, the first tremor of something real. His soul leans toward you even if his body remains still. But this quiet energy, this gentle shift, this calm attentiveness leads us into something even more revealing. Something that goes beyond presence alone. Because the next sign is not merely how he stands before you, but how he shows up for you. And that takes us into the second keynote. 2. Attention without demand. When a man is truly drawn to you, his attention does not arrive with conditions. He does not appear only when convenient, only when praised, only when desired. His attention is not a negotiation. It is not a currency designed to gain control, validation, or advantage. Instead, it flows quietly, naturally, freely. He listens when you speak, not waiting for his turn to reply, but absorbing you. He checks in not to keep track of your movements, but to stay close to your world. He notices the tone of your messages, the rhythm of your day, the subtle rise and fall in your energy. There is no pressure, no pushing, no pulling, just presence. And this kind of presence is rare, because most attention in this world comes with expectation. People listen to be listened to. They give to receive. They care to be rewarded. But a man who is emotionally drawn to you gives attention not as a strategy, but as a form of devotion. Not loud devotion, not dramatic devotion, but quiet, honest, steady devotion. He doesn't demand your time. He values it. He doesn't expect your affection. He earns it. He doesn't chase your validation. He respects your boundaries. His attention becomes a safe place instead of a burden. You begin to notice the sincerity behind his small gestures, the way he remembers something you said in passing, the way he anticipates your needs before you voice them, the way he picks up on the emotional shifts you thought you hid. This attention is not the kind that consumes you or overwhelms you. It doesn't suffocate. It doesn't cling. It simply aligns itself with your world like a shadow moving with the sun, quietly, consistently, effortlessly. And the beauty of this attention is that it reveals something profound about his inner world. He is not trying to possess you. He is trying to understand you. Understanding is the foundation of emotional intimacy, the slow opening of two souls toward each other. When a man gives attention without demand, what he's truly saying is, I am here because I want to be, not because I need something from you. And that kind of presence, that kind of listening, that kind of intentional awareness is what allows love to root itself without fear. But attention alone is not enough. There is another sign, deeper than words, deeper than presence, deeper than effort. A sign that cannot be controlled or rehearsed. It appears in the eyes. And when you see it, you feel everything. Which leads us directly into the next keynote. 3. The lasting gaze. There is something sacred about the way a man looks at a woman he is drawn to. Not the first look. That one is easy, impulsive, instinctual. The whole world can give you a first look. But it is the second look that reveals the truth. The second look holds meaning. The second look is the one he tries not to show. Because the second look is the one he didn't intend to betray. A man may pretend he's not affected by you. He may maintain composure, confidence, control. He may speak calmly, act normally, carry himself with poise. But his eyes will tell on him. That lingering moment, that fraction of a second when his gaze returns to you even after he's looked away, that is where his heart is exposed. That is where sincerity slips past his defenses. That is where the walls crumble and the truth escapes before he can catch it. The lasting gaze is not sexual, not hungry, not predatory. It is softer, more reverent, more contemplative. It is the gaze of someone who is trying to understand what it is about you that unsettles him in the most beautiful way. It is the gaze of someone who sees something rare, something he cannot explain, but cannot deny. This gaze lingers because the soul lingers. He looks at you like someone trying to remember a dream he doesn't want to lose. He looks at you like someone seeing sunlight after a long winter. He looks at you like someone standing before a mystery he feels drawn to explore. A lasting gaze reveals three things. 1. Curiosity. He wants to understand who you are beneath the surface. 2. Appreciation. He admires you, not just physically but energetically. 3. Recognition. Your presence awakens something familiar inside him. And this recognition unnerves him a little. Not in a fearful way, but in a soul-deep way. You hold a mirror to a part of himself he has not yet faced, a part he has not yet lived, a part he has not yet dared to acknowledge. This is why he looks away quickly, and why he looks back again. The eyes betray what the mind isn't ready to confess. And the more emotionally drawn he becomes, the more this gaze intensifies in depth, not in duration. Becomes heavier with meaning, more textured with emotion, You feel it in your body, even if he never speaks a word. It is a language beyond language, a conversation between two energies before either one chooses to speak. But the lasting gaze does not stand alone. It reveals something beyond attention, beyond presence, beyond quiet admiration. Because the way he looks at you will eventually influence the way he behaves around you. And that leads to the next awakening. 4. Subtle protection. There is a form of love that does not announce itself with words, gifts, or declarations. It speaks in actions so quiet you could miss them. If your heart is not paying attention, a man who feels a genuine pull toward you will not always express it directly. Sometimes his soul speaks through instinct, subtle gestures of protection that emerge before his mind can catch them. He may not even understand why he does it. He steps to the outside when you walk together near a busy road. He slows his pace when you're wearing heels. His hand hovers for a moment, not touching you, but prepared to. As you step off a curb or move through a crowded place, these gestures aren't planned. They are felt. They come from a place deep inside him where logic doesn't govern behavior, where instinct does. Protection is a language older than words. It is the invisible guardrail of love, the silent vow of "I've got you," spoken without a single sound. Notice how he watches you without watching you. He scans the room not out of suspicion but out of awareness. He observes how others speak to you, not out of jealousy, but out of a quiet desire for your dignity to remain intact. It is not possession, it is not control, it is care, pure, unfiltered, unrequested care. You will feel it before you fully understand it. The way his presence subtly shifts from being around you to standing between you and the discomforts of the world. And what's remarkable is that he does this not because he thinks you are weak, but because something inside him whispers that your energy is worth protecting. There is a softness in this instinct, a reverence, a kind of ancient masculine grace that reveals his heart long before he declares it. And if you pay attention, you will see that these gestures arise, not only when danger is present, but also when your emotions shift. Your sighs matter to him. Your silence matters to him. Your tiredness matters to him. A man who protects you physically often begins by protecting your peace. He listens for the tremors in your voice. He notices when your smile doesn't reach your eyes. He recognizes when your spirit feels a little heavier than usual. He may not have the perfect words, but he will offer a safe space, sometimes in the form of presence, sometimes in the form of patience. And this is the quiet truth. A man can enjoy your beauty, but he protects your essence. Protection is not about strength. It is about intention. It is the way he opens doors, not out of politeness, but because he wants your path to be easier. It is the way he waits for you to get home safely, just to hear the soft relief in your voice when you say, "I'm in." These are not small gestures. These are the beginnings of emotional investment, the early signs that your well-being has found a home inside his awareness. But protection is only one dimension of his emotional shift. And when this instinct awakens, something else follows. Something deeper, something more revealing than any action alone. Because after he protects you, he begins to open himself. And that is where we enter the next keynote. 5. Emotional opening. It is one thing for a man to protect your outer world, but when he begins protecting you from his inner world, you know something profound has awakened in him. Men do not open easily, not because they are incapable of emotion, but because vulnerability feels like exposure, like standing barefoot on sacred ground. Most men have learned to be strong before they have learned to be honest. They know how to endure pain better than they know how to speak of it. But when a man feels emotionally drawn to you, a shift occurs, a quiet trembling inside him that says, maybe I can trust her with this part of myself. Begin small. A story from childhood. A wound he never mentioned before. A moment of fear he disguises with humor, but ultimately reveals with truth. He shares not to impress you, but to let you see him. And that is no small thing. Because when a man opens emotionally, he is not asking you to fix him. He is inviting you into the unpolished places of his soul. You hear the cracks in his voice when he speaks of a moment that changed him. You see the glimmer in his eyes when he recalls someone he lost, something he gave up, a dream that fell apart. You witness the softening of his guard. As he lets you closer to the parts of himself he keeps hidden from the world. A man can laugh with many, work with many, share space with many, but he only shares his truth with the one he trusts. And this trust, once given, creates a doorway between two hearts. A doorway where intimacy and compassion intertwine. He may not say, "I trust you," but his vulnerability speaks it for him. Because trust is not a word, it is an offering. And when he offers you pieces of his inner world, he is telling you something sacred. You are safe to me. He is telling you he sees you, not as a temporary presence, but as someone with enough depth to hold his truth without judgment. This emotional opening changes the rhythm between you. Conversations no longer skim the surface, they deepen. Silences no longer feel awkward, they feel meaningful. Moments no longer feel accidental, they feel ordained. And as he opens, you may feel your own heart beginning to unfold, like petals responding to light. Because when someone shares their truth with you, whether they realize it or not, they awaken your own truth in return. This shared vulnerability becomes a bridge, a quiet pathway where connection deepens without either of you forcing anything. But emotional opening brings with it another revelation, not what he tells you, but what he remembers about you, which guides us deeply, naturally, inevitably into the next keynote. 6. He remembers the tiny things. There is a moment every woman feels, a soft, warm, unspoken recognition, when she realizes he was paying attention, not to your makeup, not to your clothes, not to your social presence, or the surface details anyone can notice, but to you, your tone, your timing, your pauses, your soft preferences, your hidden habits, your unspoken needs. He remembers the small things most people overlook, because he listens with intention, not convenience. Perhaps you mentioned once how you take your tea. Weeks later, he brings it exactly that way, without asking again. Perhaps you shared a childhood story that felt insignificant to you. Months later, he recalls it with surprising clarity, because it meant something to him. Not the story itself, but the fact that you shared it. He notices the rise in your voice when you're excited and the subtle lowering of it when you're drained. He remembers the things you thought no one would ever care about. The song that reminds you of home, the scent that calms your nerves, the way you touch your wrist when anxious, the expression you make when you're thinking deeply. He remembers not because he tries, but because his heart naturally stores what his soul values. This remembering is not merely affection. It is attentiveness rooted in emotional investment. It means he carries pieces of you, even when you're not physically present. You live in his awareness, without needing to ask for space. And this is where the deeper truth emerges. A man can admire your beauty and forget it the next morning. But a man who remembers your details is a man whose heart has already begun to shape its life around your presence. The tiny things are never tiny. They are emotional fingerprints, evidence that he sees you not as an experience, but as a person. Because when a man remembers you in the small details of the world, it means he sees you in the small details of himself. And this attentiveness, this storing of your presence in his memory, leads directly to something even deeper, the kind of connection that begins reshaping his future, not just his present. Because remembering you is the first step to imagining you. 7. The shift in his priorities. There comes a moment in every meaningful connection when something quiet, something almost invisible, begins to rearrange itself inside a man. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not announce itself with declarations of devotion or promises of forever. Instead, it whispers through the subtle reordering of his world. He begins making time instead of finding time. He begins choosing presence over convenience. His schedule, once rigid and impenetrable, suddenly bends, not out of obligation, but out of desire. You may notice how he becomes more intentional about what he does, where he goes, and who he allows close to him. This is not because he suddenly dislikes other people. It's because something about your presence recalibrates his internal compass. You become a quiet priority, not one he brags about, not one he announces, but one his actions reveal long before he names it. He will cancel plans he once felt obligated to honor. He will show up on days he would normally disappear. He will carve out moments from the busiest hours because some part of him feels pulled in your direction. And this pulling is not the reckless, impulsive desire of infatuation. It is the steady, grounded shift that happens. When someone recognizes the value of another's spirit, he begins choosing what nurtures him over what distracts him. He begins moving away from chaos and toward clarity. He begins investing energy where he feels seen and understood. He may not tell you this directly. In fact, he may not even fully realize it himself. But his behavior reveals the truth. Where once he operated from habit, now he operates from intention. Where once he allowed his life to drift, now he begins steering it. And you may wonder, what changed? The answer is simple yet profound. You awakened a part of him that wanted to be more present, more disciplined, more alive. He's no longer driven solely by survival or routine. He's driven by meaning, by resonance, by the quiet understanding that being near you shifts his internal state in a way he cannot ignore. He begins saying yes to what feels aligned and no to what drains him. You see it in the way he prioritizes conversations with you. You hear it in the way his tone softens when he says your name. You feel it in the subtle gravitational pull between you. That doesn't need explanation. And as his priorities shift, so does the rhythm of his life. He becomes more discerning with his choices, more aware of his environment, more protective of his peace. Because now he isn't just living for himself. Something within him is expanding. A deeper purpose is quietly forming. And that purpose draws him toward stability, toward presence, toward emotional availability. But this shift, this rearranging of his inner world, leads directly into the next transformation. Because when a man's priorities shift, his energy begins to shift with them. And that takes us into the next keynote. 8. The way his energy rests around you. There is an unmistakable stillness that enters the space the moment a man truly begins to care. It is not the stillness of boredom, nor the stillness of distance. It is the stillness of comfort, the kind that only appears when someone feels safe to exhale around another person. His energy settles. His guard lowers. His restlessness softens. Where he once needed to fill every silence with conversation, now he lets the quiet breathe. Where he once rushed through moments, now he allows time to expand. Where he once felt the need to present the best version of himself, now he feels free to simply be. He stops performing. He stops posturing. He stops trying to impress. You become a place where his nervous system relaxes, where his spirit unwinds, where his mind takes refuge from the demands of the world. Because real attraction is not just intensity, it is tranquility. You will notice the subtle signs, the way his voice drops when he speaks to you, the way his shoulders lower when he sits beside you, the way he unconsciously draws closer to your presence, as if your energy calibrates his own. He no longer feels the pressure to have all the answers. He doesn't feel the need to hide his uncertainties. He doesn't armor himself with pride. Around you, he becomes more honest, not through words alone, but through the ease of his presence. He lets you see him unguarded. He lets you witness the pause between his thoughts. He lets you feel the softness beneath his strength. And it is in this softness that genuine connection grows. Because when two energies rest in each other's presence, the mind stops searching, the heart stops defending, and the soul stops hiding. This restfulness is not passive. It is sacred. It means you are becoming a sanctuary to him, a place where he can return to himself without fear of judgment or abandonment. You bring him clarity without effort. You bring him peace without asking. You bring him stability without demand. And he may not say the words out loud, but his energy speaks them softly. I feel safe here. When a man's energy rests, his fears begin to dissolve, and in their place, a deeper form of emotion emerges, one that cannot be hidden or reasoned away or suppressed with logic. Because this resting energy, this quiet surrender, naturally leads into the next revelation, the revelation of his willingness to grow. For when a man feels safe, he begins to evolve, which takes us into the next keynote. 9. His desire to grow because of you. Growth is not something a man does casually. He grows when something or someone awakens the part of him that wants to rise. When he feels emotionally drawn to you, he begins seeing himself through a different lens. Not a lens of inadequacy, but a lens of possibility. You remind him of the man he wants to become, not because you pressure him, not because you criticize him, not because you demand more, but because your presence inspires more. You ignite something powerful in him, a quiet, steady motivation to rise into the fullness of his potential. You may see signs of this transformation unfolding. He becomes more intentional with his decisions, more patient with his emotions, more aware of his patterns, more committed to his responsibilities, more accountable for his behavior. You awaken the part of him that wants to be consistent, reliable, focused, not to earn your approval, but to honor the connection he feels with you. He begins evaluating the way he speaks, the way he reacts, the way he loves. He starts building discipline. He starts developing clarity. He starts healing wounds he once ignored or avoided. Your presence becomes a mirror, not one that shames him, but one that elevates him. Through you, he begins to see the version of himself he always wanted to meet. He becomes more grounded in his purpose, more aligned with his truth, more graceful with his growth. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aware of who he is, aware of what he wants, aware of how deeply he feels for you. And this awareness pushes him to evolve with intention. Because when a man is inspired by a woman's presence, he doesn't try to possess her. He tries to become worthy of walking beside her. He does not shrink back into his old patterns. He does not hide behind excuses. He does not run from discomfort. Instead, he leans into the work, the internal work, the emotional work, the spiritual work. He grows because connection reveals his potential. He grows because safety awakens his strength. He grows because your energy brings him face to face with the man he knows he can be. And this evolution, this gentle, deliberate rise, leads to a deeper transformation. Because once a man begins to grow because of you, he no longer sees you as a passing moment. He sees you as a turning point, a shift, a catalyst, a new beginning. And that understanding is what naturally opens the door to the next phase of love. The phase where he begins imagining you in his future. Because when a man grows for you, he soon begins growing with you. 10. He remembers the details you forgot you shared. There is a strange tenderness woven into the smallest fragments of conversation. Tiny moments you barely noticed, small truths you spoke without intention, soft confessions you whispered thinking they would dissolve into the air. But he didn't forget. He folded them into the quiet corners of his memory, as if each word you offered carried a pulse, a meaning, a reflection of something sacred. What most people don't realize is that the heart does not remember by accident. It remembers by resonance. When someone cares, they listen with more than ears. They listen with presence. They listen with stillness. They listen with the kind of attention that says, I see you even when you're not trying to be seen. Think about the last time someone remembered something so small, so insignificant, that it took you by surprise. The way you prefer your tea. The childhood story you told without emotion. The name of the street where you used to sit and think when life felt too heavy. These little recollections, gathered gently, reveal a truth. The soul always holds on to what the mind may forget. When he remembers these pieces of you, he is not collecting data. He is collecting meaning. He is trying to understand the shape of your spirit. And this changes everything. Because the world is full of people who listen to reply. But very few listen to understand. Even fewer listen to honor. And almost none listen with the intention to protect. But he listens this way, not because he was taught to, but because something in you makes him want to try. It is as if your words become seeds planted in the soil of his mind, and even when days or weeks pass, they bloom again in unexpected moments. You mentioned once that you love sunrises more than sunsets because beginnings feel gentler than endings. Then one morning, without warning, he takes you to a place where the sky lifts itself slowly into gold, not because you asked, not because it was planned, but because he remembered. Or you once said that lavender reminds you of home, and months later he chooses a candle with no explanation. Just the quiet acknowledgement of understanding what you didn't say twice. When a man remembers the details, he is revealing the quiet geography of his heart. He is showing you where you live inside him. But here is the deeper truth beneath the surface. Memory is the language of love, long before love is spoken aloud. And as you realize this, something stirs within you. A subtle knowing, a warmth rising from the center of your chest. Because attention is sacred, presence is sacred, and to be remembered in a world so full of distraction is one of the rarest forms of affection. Yet, the story does not end here, because remembering you is only the beginning. The real revelation comes in what he does next. Because when a man remembers your details, he begins to feel your absence long before you walk away. 11. He feels your absence more than your presence. There is something paradoxical about the human heart. It often realizes the depth of its attachment, not when someone is near, but when they are gone, even for a moment. Absence has a way of clarifying what presence disguises. It removes the noise, the clutter, the familiarity, and leaves only the essence, the truth of how deeply someone matters. And when he feels your absence more than your presence, something profound is happening beneath the surface of his quiet behavior. Notice the shift. When you are around him, he carries himself with calmness, sometimes even with effortful restraint. He tries not to reveal too much, too quickly, because vulnerability is a door many people are hesitant to open. But the moment you step away, when the sound of your voice fades, when your laughter becomes memory instead of music, something inside him sinks. He finds himself thinking about the way your presence changes the atmosphere, how you soften the tension in the air just by walking into the room, how the simplest conversation with you gives his thoughts a place to rest, how the world feels slightly more aligned, more ordered, more breathable when you are near. And when you are gone, even briefly, he feels it. It shows in tiny ways. The silence feels heavier, the day feels longer, the world feels a bit too sharp at the edges. He may not say it aloud, He may not even understand it himself at first. But the heart always knows before the mind admits it. And in that quiet knowing, something beautiful unfolds. Your presence becomes the comfort. His soul returns to. He begins to realize that it is not the grand gestures or dramatic moments that make him miss you. It is the smallest things. The way you pause before you speak. The way you look at the world with thoughtfulness, not rush. The way you choose your words carefully, as though each one carries intention. These details linger long after you leave, echoing in his memory as reminders of what he didn't know he needed. Absence reveals what presence conceals. And in this revelation, he discovers a truth he cannot ignore. Your presence is not just pleasant, it is grounding. Not just beautiful, it is stabilizing. Not just enjoyable, it is essential. But here is where the depth truly emerges. When a person begins to feel your absence so intensely, they naturally become afraid, not of losing you, but of losing the version of themselves that exists when you are near. Because you bring out a gentleness he forgot he had, a clarity he didn't know he could access, a courage he rarely feels around anyone else. This realization becomes a quiet pull, drawing him towards something deeper, something more vulnerable, something he can no longer deny. Yet feeling your absence is only part of the story. The real transformation happens when he begins adjusting his actions because of it. Because when absence begins to matter, effort soon follows. 12. He tries to show up before you ask him to. There is a kind of love that moves quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. The kind that reveals itself not in words, but in actions. And one of the most profound signs that someone's heart is shifting in your direction is when he begins showing up for you before you even ask. This is where intention becomes visible. This is where affection becomes responsibility. This is where interest becomes devotion. You see, most people move through life with a kind of emotional passivity, waiting to be told what is needed, waiting to be instructed on how to show care. But when he starts acting before you speak, it means your well-being has already entered his awareness. It means he carries your needs in his mind, even when you're not expressing them. You mentioned once that you've had a long week. He appears with something small, tea, time, tenderness, offering the kind of support that says, "I heard you even between the lines." You sigh softly without explanation, and he leans in, not demanding answers, but asking gently, "Are you okay?" Not out of obligation, but because something in him refuses to let you carry your heaviness alone. He anticipates, he observes, he responds from a place of sincerity, and sincerity is a rare language in a world full of performance. Notice how he begins to adjust the structure of his days, not dramatically, not loudly, but meaningfully. He becomes a little more intentional with his time, a little more considerate with his presence, a little more thoughtful with his actions. Because care, when genuine, becomes instinctive. It becomes a habit of the heart. And this is the moment you realize something extraordinary. The same man who once guarded himself now chooses to show up for you with quiet consistency. Not because he is trying to impress you. Not because he is trying to earn anything, but because your happiness affects him. Your peace influences him. Your smile changes something inside him. This is the shift between interest and investment, between liking someone and building something with them. And when a man begins showing up before you ask, he is revealing that you are no longer just a passing connection. You are becoming a priority. But the deeper revelation lies in the unspoken message behind his effort. I want to be someone you can rely on. I want to be someone who lightens your load. I want to be someone who stands with you, not just near you. There is strength in this kind of presence. A strength that does not overpower, but supports. A strength that does not control, but uplifts. A strength that does not demand, but offers. And as he continues showing up in these gentle, meaningful ways, He invites you into a world where partnership feels like peace, not pressure, where connection feels like sanctuary, not struggle, where love feels like alignment, not confusion. But this journey is far from over, because showing up is only the beginning. The transformation that follows is even deeper, even more profound, even more revealing. Because once someone begins showing up for you, they eventually reveal why they're afraid to lose you. 13. He slows down his life just to make space for you. There comes a moment in the unfolding of any connection where effort stops being something forced and begins to feel like something sacred. And one of the most profound signs that someone's heart has tilted toward you is this. He begins slowing down his life just to make space for you. Not rushing, not squeezing you into the gaps of an already busy existence, not treating you like an appointment that must be strategically placed between one obligation and the next, but slowing down, creating stillness, opening up room within the rhythm of his days for you to exist freely, fully, and without pressure. This shift is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is quiet, so quiet, in fact, that most people miss it, but you can feel it. You feel it in the way he no longer seems distracted when you speak. You feel it in the way he begins saying no to things he once said yes to. You feel it in the way his presence changes. From hurried to grounded, from divided to undivided, from scattered to attentive. He's making space for you, not as an obligation, but as a desire. Space in his schedule, space in his thoughts, space in his plans, space in his emotional landscape. There is a softness in this kind of intention, a surrender that hints at something deeper. Because people rarely slow down for what they do not value. They slow down for what matters. They slow down for what they cannot risk losing. They slow down for what their heart wants time to understand. He may not say this out loud. He may not even fully recognize the depth of his own shift. But the soul always acts before the mind catches up. He starts replying quicker, not out of habit, but out of eagerness. He starts listening longer, not out of politeness, but out of resonance. He begins giving you his evenings, his quiet moments, his softer hours, the time between responsibilities, the time most people reserve for their peace. And that is the real sign. You have become a place where his spirit rests, not a task he must complete. When a man slows his life for you, he begins protecting the time he spends with you. It becomes intentional. It becomes meaningful. It becomes a container for something he doesn't yet have the words to define. He starts to notice that you bring him back to himself, not the performing self, not the pressured self, but the self that breathes deeply, laughs honestly, thinks clearly, and feels fully alive. And because of that, he gives you his time, not out of duty, but out of devotion. This is the difference between someone merely wanting you and someone preparing for you. Wanting is impulsive, preparing is deliberate. And he is preparing by making space, preparing by making room, preparing by slowing down the pace of his life so your presence can enter without friction. This slowing down is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the wisdom of someone who understands that love cannot bloom in chaos, nor does connection deepen in noise. Love requires stillness. Connection requires breath. Bonding requires the kind of time that is not measured but felt. And so he slows down, not because he lacks things to do, but because nothing feels as meaningful as being in the same emotional space as you. Yet the deeper truth is even more revealing. People only slow down their lives for those they are afraid to rush past. Because rushing creates distance, and distance risks disconnection, and disconnection risks losing something precious before it fully becomes what it was meant to be. So he slows, he opens, he creates room. But this is only part of the story, because once a man begins slowing down his life for you, something else begins to rise from within him. Something he can't hide, something he can't ignore, something he never expected to feel so strongly. Because slowing down for you is only the beginning. The real revelation is why he starts protecting you as though losing you would cost him a piece of himself. 14. He becomes protective of your emotional world. There is a certain kind of protection that does not come from strength of body, but from depth of heart. The kind that emerges when someone begins to feel emotionally invested, deeply connected, and profoundly responsible for the stability of your inner world. This is not the protection of ego or control. This is not possession. This is not dominance. This is care, sacred, quiet, attentive care. You feel it in the way he listens differently, not just to your words, but to the weight behind your words, not just to your stories, but to the emotional tone woven into the spaces between sentences. You notice it when he becomes more attentive to the things that have the power to hurt you, the comments that shake you, the situations that drain you, the people who disrespect your boundaries. He picks up on these things. He feels them, not as your experiences, but as signals about what you should never have to face alone. He is not trying to rescue you. He is trying to stand with you. There's a beautiful difference. He asks how your day was, not out of habit, but out of concern. He checks in, not to monitor you, but to understand you. He notices when your energy changes, when your spirit dips, when your smile doesn't fully reach your eyes. His presence becomes a shelter, not one that shields you from life, but one that stands beside you as you face it. He begins choosing his words with more care around you. He becomes mindful of how he speaks, mindful of how things may land, mindful of how your heart receives things. Because he is aware that your emotional world is not something to be handled casually. And the beautiful irony is this: the more he protects your emotional world, the safer he feels revealing his own. He becomes less afraid to open up, less afraid to be seen, less afraid to admit when he is uncertain, when he is hurting, when he is afraid, because emotional protection is reciprocal, even when one person gives it first. But there is an even deeper layer to this shift, a spiritual dimension that people often overlook. When someone becomes protective of your emotional world, it means they have started to integrate you into their sense of purpose. They feel responsible for your peace. They feel connected to your well-being. They feel invested in your growth, your healing, your softness, your wholeness. He begins to see your heart not as something fragile, but as something sacred, something worth honoring, something worth safeguarding, something worth showing up for. He pays attention when you speak about your past hurts, not to judge them, but to understand how to avoid repeating them. He listens to your fears, not to dismiss them, but to learn how to help you feel secure. He hears your dreams, not as fantasies, but as destinations he hopes to witness you reach. This kind of protection is love in its earliest, purest form. Love before romance, love before labels, love before declarations. It is the instinct of someone who sees you as someone who deserves to be treated with gentleness, consistency, and truth. But here is the deeper truth. People do not protect what they are ready to lose. If he were indifferent, he wouldn't notice your mood. If he were detached, he wouldn't care about your well-being. If he were unsure, he wouldn't invest so deeply in your world. Protection reveals attachment. Attachment reveals priority. Priority reveals intention. But this protection is only the beginning of an even deeper transformation, one that takes the connection to a level you may not have expected, but one that becomes undeniable once it emerges. Because after a man begins protecting your emotional world, something inevitable happens. He no longer just protects your heart. He starts revealing the truth inside his own. 15. He starts revealing the parts of himself he hid from everyone else. There comes a moment in the unfolding of a connection where the surface breaks, where the carefully curated version of a person begins to crumble, not in chaos but in honesty. Where he stops offering the version of himself shaped for the world and starts revealing the version shaped by his truth. This moment is quiet. It's not marked by a dramatic confession or a sudden emotional outburst. It arrives slowly, like dawn, soft, gradual, gentle, undeniable. You begin to notice the shift. At first, he speaks about things lightly, the things he shares with anyone, the things that cost him nothing, his day, his work, his routine, his preferences, the surface-level parts of life that create familiarity without intimacy. But then, something changes. He pauses more before speaking. Not because he's uncertain, but because he's finally letting himself feel the weight of what he wants to share. His words become slower, deeper, more vulnerable. His eyes begin holding yours a little longer, as though searching for a safety he didn't expect to find. And then, the truth begins to unfold. Not all at once, not dramatically, but piece by piece, like layers gently peeled back by trust itself. He begins telling you about his past, not the polished version, but the real one. The mistakes he made when he didn't know better, the wounds he carried long before he met you, the moments of doubt he kept hidden because he feared people would misjudge him or misunderstand him. You hear the softness in his voice when he speaks about his fears, the fear of being inadequate, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being too much or not enough. These are not weaknesses. These are the quiet corners of the human spirit that only emerge when someone feels safe enough to be seen. And that is what your presence is becoming for him, a refuge where he doesn't have to armor himself. He speaks about the pressure he carries, the expectations placed on him, the failures he hides behind silence. He tells you about the dreams he abandoned because life asked too much of him. He shares the moments he felt small, the moments he felt lost, the moments he felt invisible, not because he expects you to fix them, but because for the first time he doesn't want to carry them alone. Revealing oneself is not merely an act of vulnerability. It is an act of trust. It is an act of surrender. It is an act of quiet courage. He reveals the parts of himself he has never spoken aloud because he senses something in you, a depth, a stability, a softness that makes honesty feel safe. And when a person feels safe, the truth becomes a river that flows naturally, effortlessly, without force. He begins letting you see the parts of him that contradict one another. The confident man with the uncertain heart, the strong man with the frightened inner child, the rational man with the spiritual longing he has never spoken about. You start to see him not as he appears, but as he truly is. And there is beauty in this, because real connection is shaped not by perfection, but by transparency, not by flawless facades, but by the courage to crumble gracefully, not by the masks we wear, but by the willingness to remove them. But something else begins happening beneath the surface, something even more telling. The more he reveals, the more invested he becomes in the bond that allows him to reveal. This is the paradox of vulnerability. When he opens to you, he doesn't distance himself. He attaches deeper. He feels closer. He feels safer. He feels seen in a way he has never been seen. And once someone feels truly seen, it becomes almost impossible to go back to emotional isolation. But this revelation, the unveiling of his hidden self, is not the end. It is the beginning of something much larger, something much deeper. Because once he reveals himself to you, fully and without disguise, something profound begins to rise within him. A desire to build something with you. Something true, something lasting, something sacred. Because when a man finally reveals who he truly is, he begins quietly planning a future he never thought he deserved. 16. He starts letting you shape the way he sees his future. There is a subtle moment in every connection where the energy shifts from present to future, from fleeting to foundational, from temporary to intentional. It doesn't happen with announcements. It doesn't come with declarations. It happens with the smallest signs, almost invisible, unless you are paying attention. And this is the moment you begin to feel he is planning with you in mind, not dramatizing it, not describing it, just allowing you to gently enter the architecture of his future. It happens the first time he talks about something months away and naturally includes you in the vision. It happens when he makes decisions and pauses, not to ask your permission, but because your presence has become a reference point in his mind. It happens when he starts shifting his priorities, not because you asked, but because he sees the possibility of a shared life as something worth organizing his world around. He begins looking at opportunities differently, not through the lens of convenience, but through the lens of alignment. Does this path support the life I'm building? Does this choice protect the connection I'm growing? Does this step bring me closer to the person I want to become beside her? This is where you see the most profound change. He no longer dreams alone. He no longer thinks in terms of I. He starts thinking in terms of we, not because he's losing himself, but because he has found a version of himself that wants partnership, harmony, and shared purpose. And yet, this shift is not loud. You won't hear him making extravagant promises. You won't see him rushing or forcing anything. Instead, his future begins bending softly in your direction, like a tree leaning toward the sun. He begins imagining a home that carries your energy. He begins envisioning a lifestyle that reflects your values. He begins designing a rhythm of life that feels like peace, not pressure. His openness is not merely emotional, it is directional. He lets your wisdom influence his decisions. He lets your strength reshape his fears. He lets your softness soften him. He lets your clarity sober him. He lets your presence mature parts of him he kept hidden or underdeveloped. This is what it means when someone allows you into their future. They begin evolving with you, not apart from you. He tells you about the goals he once thought were impossible. And suddenly, with you in the picture, they don't feel so impossible anymore. He expresses desires he once found unrealistic, and with your presence, they become attainable. He talks about the life he hopes to build, not with desperation, but with quiet confidence, because you bring a sense of stability he didn't know he needed. And even deeper than that, your presence awakens ambition in him. Not the ambition of ego, but the ambition of becoming a better man, one worthy of the kind of love he is beginning to desire, with a sincerity that surprises even him. He starts healing parts of himself because he sees a future with you that requires emotional maturity. He starts correcting old patterns because he doesn't want to lose something rare. He starts investing in his own growth, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. When someone begins to adjust their future for you, it is not because they depend on you, but because you inspire them. You become a mirror reflecting back the person he is capable of becoming. You become the compass aligning him with his highest self. You become the anchor helping him move through life with steadiness and intention. And once he allows you into his future, even subtly, even quietly, even without words, you become something he protects, prioritizes, and nurtures. But the most beautiful truth is this: people don't shape their future around someone they see as temporary. They only do that when their soul recognizes someone whose presence feels like home. And yet, even this is not the end of the story. Because once he begins seeing his future with you, something even deeper emerges. When a man lets you shape his future, he begins preparing himself for a love he once believed was too big for him to receive. 17. He listens beyond your words. He hears your silence. There's a kind of listening that doesn't need sound. A kind of understanding that doesn't rely on explanations. A kind of presence that makes your breath soften, your shoulders drop, your heart unclench. Not because everything is perfect, but because for the first time in a long time, you don't need to hide the storm inside you. This is the listening that reveals the truth of how deeply someone feels for you. Most people hear what you say, a rare few hear what you mean. But the one who cares for you on a level beyond attraction, beyond desire, beyond surface affection, he hears what you fear, what you avoid, what you wish you could say but can't find the words for. He hears the trembling under your strength. He hears the exhaustion under your laughter. He hears the courage behind your vulnerability. He hears the history behind your silence. And in that moment, you feel seen without being exposed, held without being touched, understood without being dissected. This kind of listening is not about solving your problems. It is about standing with you in the empty room of your soul, hands unclenched, ego quiet, heart open. When someone listens to you this way, they aren't trying to fix the moment. They are trying to meet you in it. And maybe that is the greatest way love shows itself. Not through promises, not through declarations, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet willingness to hear what you never said out loud. Because when someone listens with the intention of understanding, they make space for you to unfold, to unravel, to reveal the layers of yourself without fear of judgment. You begin to breathe again. You begin to trust again. You begin to remember parts of yourself you had silenced long ago. And isn't it fascinating that the right person doesn't just listen to your voice, they listen to your pauses, your hesitations, your tone shifting between courage and fear. They notice the way your eyes look away when something hurts. They notice the way your fingers tighten when you're remembering something you wish you could forget. They notice the way your smile stretches a little too wide on days when your heart feels small. This type of listening is love wearing its most sacred form, presence. Because presence whispers, I'm here, not to judge, not to shrink from your depth, not to flee from your shadows. I'm here to understand the world inside you, but there's something deeper than this, something even more powerful. When someone listens to your silence, they also reveal something about themselves. They reveal patience. They reveal emotional maturity. They reveal empathy. They reveal the willingness to walk into the unknown corners of another person's soul without fear. It means they are not afraid of who you really are. They are not intimidated by your history. They are not overwhelmed by your depth. They are not running from the weight of your emotions. Instead, they lean in. They listen not only with their ears, but with their attention, their curiosity, their devotion. This type of listening is an honor, a sacred participation in your inner world. And only someone who truly values you can do it. And maybe the greatest gift you can give yourself is recognizing when someone listens to you like this and when they don't. Because a heart that listens to your silence is a heart you don't need to chase. It comes closer on its own. It steps toward you willingly. It understands you instinctively. And it is in this understanding that something extraordinary unfolds. Because the one who listens to your silence will eventually show you something even more powerful. Something that reveals the depth of his commitment, not just to you, but to who you're becoming. And that leads us into the next truth. A truth that changes the entire dynamic of love. A truth that shapes the destiny of your connection. 18. He doesn't fear your strength. He rises to meet. There is a quiet miracle in being loved by someone who is not threatened by your power. Someone who doesn't shrink when you grow. Someone who doesn't compete when you succeed. Someone who doesn't need to dim your light to feel seen themselves. Instead, he stands with you in your strength and treats it as something sacred, something beautiful, something worthy of admiration, not fear. Most people want connection, but few want a connection with someone powerful. Strength requires maturity. Depth requires responsibility. Growth requires presence. And yet here he is, not intimidated, not insecure, not pulling away, but rising. He rises because your strength does not threaten him, it awakens him. It stirs something inside him, a desire to match your energy, to mirror your commitment, to elevate himself so he can stand beside you, not behind you, not above you, but beside you. Being with a powerful woman is not for the faint-hearted. Your intuition is sharp, your standards are high, your boundaries are firm, your heart is tender but not naive. Your presence demands authenticity because you refuse to settle for anything less. And yet, he does not run, he does not shrink, he does not flinch, he does not disappear into insecurity. Instead, he rises. He rises into emotional maturity. He rises into responsibility. He rises into clarity. He rises into steadiness. He rises because your strength calls forth his own. And the beautiful thing is, he doesn't rise to impress you. He rises to match you, to build with you, to become someone worthy of the connection you bring into his life. You see, a powerful woman does not need a man to complete her, but she does need a man who can accompany her, walk with her, grow with her, challenge her in healthy ways, support her without control, love her without fear. Your strength does not scare him because he is not looking for a childlike connection. He is looking for a partnership, a union, a meeting of equals. He doesn't see your strength as a threat. He sees it as a mirror, reflecting the greatness he too is capable of. And when he rises, you feel it. The way he becomes more intentional, the way he becomes more present, the way he becomes more grounded, the way he shows up, not just for you but for himself, with more conviction than before. Your strength doesn't push him away, it pulls him upward. And suddenly you realize, this is what love feels like when it's healthy, when it's real, when it's rooted in mutual growth instead of fear. Love is not about shrinking yourself so someone else feels comfortable. Love is not about dimming your brilliance so someone else doesn't feel insecure. Love is not about hiding your depth so someone else doesn't drown. Love is expansion. Love is elevation. Love is two people rising into higher versions of themselves because the connection demands the best in both. And he is rising. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because he sees your strength as an invitation, not a challenge. A partnership, not a competition. A future, not a threat. And here lies the quiet revelation at the heart of this keynote. When someone rises to meet your strength, they reveal exactly where they intend to stand in your life. And that understanding leads us toward the next discovery. A discovery about what love becomes when two people stop shrinking and start ascending together. And so, as everything we have explored gently settles in your heart, let this truth rise to the surface like a quiet sunrise. After a long night, you are not asking for too much. You are simply remembering who you are. Love was never meant to make you small. It was meant to expand you, to lift you, to honor you, to reveal the strength you tried to hide and the grace you sometimes forgot you had. Every moment, every keynote, every reflection in this journey has been leading you back to the same truth. You are worthy of a connection that listens to your silence. You are worthy of a bond that rises to meet your strength. You are worthy of a love grounded in presence, not performance, intuition, not insecurity, growth, not fear. You were never meant to chase affection. You were meant to attract alignment. And the one who is meant for you, he will not be confused by your depth. He will not be frightened by your softness. He will not flee from your power. He will meet you at the level of your soul. He will honor your heart the way a gardener honors a sacred garden, with patience, with curiosity, with reverence. And when that moment comes, when someone steps into your life with a steady voice, a clear intention, and a heart ready to show up, you will recognize it. Not because he says the right things, but because he becomes the right presence. Love at its highest expression is never loud. It is calm, it is steady, it is clear, it is felt in the quiet confidence of someone who chooses you. Not out of need, not out of habit, not out of loneliness, but out of alignment. And so, as you walk forward from this moment, Carry this truth gently but proudly. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are rising into the version of yourself that only a worthy love can meet. Let your silence speak where noise once lived. Let your strength stand where doubt once stood. Let your heart open not in fear, but in faith. Because when the right soul crosses your path, you won't have to question it, force it, or fear it. It will feel like a return home, not to another person, but to yourself. And in that homecoming you will know, love was never the destination, it was the awakening.